I don't know about you, but I am deeply excited that we are having this conversation in deep East Oakland. And I know that may not mean anything to some of y'all, but I am born and raised deep East Oakland. And so I'm grateful tonight for your presence. And I am glad that we're hosting it as a church, where some folk may think it's inappropriate to do that, but our scripture teaches us that we seek the welfare of the city. Because it is in seeking the welfare of the city that all of our collective welfare is secured. And so I want to publicly thank our city officials for thinking it not robbery. Please join us. I thank our public officials for joining us in our house. And in every house, there are rules. And so this is our Family Life Center that is attached to our church. And so we honor one another here. We respect one another here. We express ourselves passionately, but we are also mindful of who we are and what we expect. And so I look forward to the dialogue. I look forward to the question and answer. Our moderator is going to share with us how that portion will work. You will see Ms. Eden standing on the floor. She has blank cards, so if there's something pressing, you think they may not get to it, please take a card, write your question down. Is that all right? You may not be people of faith, but I am, and so I believe I want God to bless our time together. So for those of you who think it not robbery, I invite you to join me in a word of prayer. And so God, in this place that becomes your sanctuary because we are your people and you are here, we say thank you. In a time when so many are losing their lives around the world for the life that we have right now, we say thank you. We thank you for how good you have been, and we thank you for the opportunity to be able to come together as community with our leaders and to learn and to share. God, we ask even now that you be with us. We ask that you be with our leaders. Guide with wisdom and with knowledge. For these wonderful residents who really are the flavor and the pillar of the City of Oakland, we say thank you. For the amazing seniors on whose shoulders we stand because they have fought for so many of our freedoms, and they are here tonight, we say thank you. For these young people of whom we need their strength and their vigor and vitality, we say thank you. Be with us tonight as we go forth to learn about the safety and security of our city, as long as its health and its cleanliness. Bless our time together now, I pray in the name of Jesus. And all those that affirm and believe say Ashe and Amen. I'm glad to be able to present to you our moderator for this evening, so won't you welcome Brooklyn Williams.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you once again. We give another round of applause for Pastor Jackie and Alan Temple for hosting us this evening. We really appreciate that. And she's on vacation, y'all, so we're getting special treatment and are very blessed to have her with us this evening. Thank you so much, Pastor Jackie. My name is Brooklyn Williams. I have the honor of serving as the Chief of Education and Community Safety for Mayor Tao. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Truly, you could be spending your Thursday evening anywhere and you're here with us, and we don't take that for granted and truly appreciate your presence and your participation. Once again, want to thank Allen Temple Baptist Church and Pastor Jackie for hosting us today. And I will be your moderator. We're going to try to get right into things. I want to first start by introducing Mayor Tao's full public safety leadership team. Each of these leaders oversees a very critical component of Oakland's comprehensive public safety plan. So tonight you will get to hear from our mayor, Mayor Shang Tao. You will be hearing from our Department of Violence Prevention Chief, Dr. Holly Joshi. You'll also be hearing from our Oakland Police Department Chief, Chief Lloyd Mitchell, as well as our Oakland Fire Department Chief, Chief Damon Covington. He's also brought the macro manager, Mr. Elliott Jones. We also have the honor of working diligently with and we'll be hearing from today our city administrator, Mr. Justin Johnson, as well as two of his staff that work with him, our assistant city administrator, Mr. Harold Duffy, as well as our Oakland Department of Transportation director, Mr. Josh Rowan. Each of these folks will be doing a brief presentation. We are getting a little bit of a late start, folks, so your presentations, I will be giving you a little bit less time, just a heads up on that. After the presentations, I'll be facilitating a question and answer session. And there are staff members around the room. I know Eden is here, and she has been passing out index cards with your questions. I have the ones that have already been submitted here with me. If you continue to have questions, just raise your hand and she'll make sure that those get up here. And tonight we're trying to strike a balance of sharing important information. Many of your questions might be answered through these presentations. We understand that there's a lot going on in our city, and we want to make sure that you understand what your city is doing for you in service of you and our communities. And so we want to get that information out, but we also want to make sure we have plenty of room left for questions and answers for you all. And so we'll be trying to strike that balance this evening. We'll get to as many questions as we can. However, we know that there may be some that we're not able to address, and so we want to make sure that everyone has either registered ahead of time with your email address, and if you didn't register ahead of time, make sure you put your email address at our registration table. Brittany, can you wave your hand over here to our lovely staff? And make sure that that email is legible so that we can add you to the list, because we'll be following up with all the answers to the questions via email. So we just want to make sure that you all are aware of that. And with that, I'm excited to kick it off by introducing our mayor, Mayor Sheng Tao. Mayor Sheng Tao is one of the Bay Area's strongest and most effective progressive leaders. Her family story, escaping genocide, poverty, and abuse, has made her into a determined, empathetic leader. Her commitment to racial justice, building affordable housing, and advocating for low-wage workers and protecting tenants can be seen in her many accomplishments as a city council member, and drives her work to improve the lives of Oakland residents as Oakland's 51st mayor. Please give a warm welcome to our mayor, Mayor Sheng Tao.
Testing. Good evening, everyone. I just want to say thank you so much to Pastor Jackie, wherever she's at. Yes, she is on vacation, but this is the dedication that she has for our community. And I just want to say thank you all. Thank you all for coming out. This is the first of many. We believe strongly under this administration that we need to come out to community where there is, yes, a lot of issues, but we know that the solution lies with the people who have to live through it every day. And so that is a requirement amongst my administration. All these fine folks up here, this is my executive team. This is the full team that I've been able to put together, hire on board to work under this administration so that we can deliver services for our communities. I think that it's incredibly important to understand how we got here. Many of you are very frustrated. I am equally frustrated myself. This isn't a situation where we had dirty streets or homeless issues and housing crisis and public safety issues over the last year or over the last 2 years. It's been a culmination of seeing Oakland get worse and worse and worse. And now we're at this point in time where we are very upset. And so I want to acknowledge that, and you have every right to be upset. So with that being said, under my administration, we approach this in a comprehensive way. Right? With all of the many years of accumulation of, not taking care of our streets, of not cleaning the streets, of not taking care of the housing crisis, what we've come and see in the first year of my administration is that there's a lot to be tackled. But we can't tackle it, and we have to start somewhere. So for public safety, we have a four-pronged approach under this administration, and that is to have a robust police department. We continuously work to ensure that we can have the most police officers that we can afford. And then at the same time, knowing that we do not have enough police officers, that we cannot afford enough officers to patrol our really big city of close to 500,000 people, we work with a multi-agency partnership. You may have heard that we just finished a multi-agency partnership with some arrests of people who have been committing many of the burglaries around the dispensaries up and down California. And so a partnership with multi-agency so we can overlay resources. We want to leverage technology, yes, because the response time is too slow. We want to make sure that we have that technology, whether it be drones. We're working with the FAA right now for first responder drones. We also have our speed cameras. And then of course, I've worked with the Privacy Commission and the state to acquire 290 cameras for the City of Oakland with a total of 480 cameras across the East Bay. We know that crime is fluid. It's just not here in Oakland. And so this is going to lead up to a real-time crime center. We've also worked with the Privacy Commission to have a policy around this. If the footage is not utilized for criminal prosecution, that footage will be sunsetted and destroyed within 30 days. The last part is going to be invest in violence prevention. So under this administration, we've brought on new leadership, and Chief Joshi will talk a little bit more about it, but we brought on new leadership to really address, how do we intervene before violence starts, and how to prevent violence from happening. As you'll see, a lot of our crime data is going to reflect when we brought back ceasefire and how that is actually creating positive impacts for our city. Number 2, clean streets. We're starting off very basic. Our streets have been very dirty for very long. And so we were actually starting out with Oakland Fresh. The city administration will talk about that. And of course, the key part of this that hasn't happened is the enforcement piece. We're going to be able to use the technology, the same flock cameras, to be able to go after bad actors who are dumping on Oakland. We know that many of these folks who are dumping in Oakland don't live here, but many of them do live here, like the businesses or what have you. And so the city administration will talk a little bit more about that. We also know that we need to partner with our community. When we talk about Oakland Fresh is how we come in and we create the deep impact, meaning pave the streets, all the while at the same time painting the curbs, painting the crosswalks, making sure that it is set and that you feel the impact of the cleanliness all at once when we come out and clean your area. But we want you to partner with us to ensure that it is kept clean through Adopt a Spot, and for us to come in and support you when it's needed. The third prong is important: economic development. For far too long, for decades now, the City of Oakland has been stagnant in regards to how do we create new streams of money. The way we pay for services in the City of Oakland is through tax dollars, whether it be property tax or sales tax. And so we need to change the way that we generate these revenues by creating new streams of revenues. And this is why, in partnership with the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, we are selling our half of the Coliseum so that we can realize that potential and have that development right here in East Oakland. That is going to be key. We have to take care of areas such as East Oakland and West Oakland, which our administration is starting the beginning works of that, whether it's through making sure the development at the Coliseum is built out, or shutting down the largest encampment in Northern California called Wood Street in West Oakland, placing everybody in shelter if they wanted it. 85% of the people that lived there took shelter, so we shut that encampment down and built out over 100 units of affordable housing on that same site. Now, right across the street was Raimondi Park. Raimondi Park was not a park that you can utilize or would even want to send your kids to. And so that is not okay. So we worked with a public-private partnership and now lays Raimondi Park. Raimondi Park is the home of the Ballers, which is our Pioneer League team. If you haven't yet gone to a Ballers game, I really hope that you would join us and go into a Ballers game. It is the feel of Oakland. With that being said, we have to make sure that we are creating the low barrier access to jobs, good paying jobs. And that is something that we are working hard on ensuring that we do as we are moving forward. These are all seeds that you have to plant in order for there to be growth in the city, equitable growth in the city. So with that being said, we've also resurrected some of our strategies to combat crimes. The strategies that we know works. The data show it works. It saves lives. It stops, the pipeline to prison. And it not just that, but it also decreases property crimes. And that is through our ceasefire program, which I know the chiefs will talk a little bit more about. But with that being said, I'll stop there because I know that we're running out of time. We are timing ourselves up here. We're only giving you short presentations because we want to take as many questions as possible. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, thank you. All right, so we're going to move into the Department of Violence Prevention's presentation by Dr. Holly Joshi, and then we'll do Chief Floyd Mitchell, and then we'll take some initial questions on crime and safety. So Dr. Holly Joshi has vast leadership experience and a track record of successfully implementing evidence-based violence prevention, and intervention strategies. Prior to taking on leadership of the Department of Violence Prevention in December, she led nonprofit organizations focused on improving health and safety and spent 14 years at the Oakland Police Department. While there, she held various roles, including the head of the Vice and Child Exploitation Unit and Chief of Staff. She was a member of the executive team that successfully implemented the ceasefire strategy in partnership with community leaders over 10 years ago. She is an Oakland native, East Oakland native, last time she corrected me, I gotta get that right, widely recognized for her expertise in the intersections of gender-based violence and gun violence, and her deep collaborative relationships across the city. Please give a warm welcome to our DVP Chief, Dr. Holly Joshi.
Thank you so much, Allen Temple in East Oakland. Thank you for the correction, Brooklyn. I see so many familiar faces and was able to say hello to some of you. There's people in this room that I've known for 20 years. There's people in this room I've known for 30 years. There's people in this room I've partnered with on projects over the years. So it's just really great to be back in East Oakland and to be in Allen Temple specifically. I grew up in the church in Oakland. My grandfather was a Kojic pastor, 50 years, Church of God in Christ. So I feel very at home amongst all y'all. So thank you for hosting us this evening and coming out in the middle of your week. So I was brought back to the city. I worked at OPD for 14 years and then left to run nonprofits in Oakland for the past decade and was brought back into the city to help the public safety strategy get back on track. Specifically the Department of Violence Prevention, which many of you may know is a baby in the big scheme of things. We were created 5 years ago. And we were created based on the advocacy of the community and the hard work of former council member Lynette McElhaney. The approach that the Department of Violence Prevention takes around preventing violence and intervening in public safety is called community violence intervention. And it's not just a strategy that the City of Oakland is implementing. It's a national practice, it's a field. I had the fortune of going to DC a couple of months ago to meet with Vice President Kamala Harris. She had invited 50 directors of departments of violence preventions across the country. So there are departments of violence prevention springing up all across the country now because it's becoming researched and best practice for cities and counties to have a community violence intervention strategy. So in that regard, we are fairly ahead of the game. With that being said, the department is still fairly small. It's 55 people. Our main goals are to reduce homicides and shootings, to reduce gender-based violence and commercial sexual exploitation, and then to address the levels of trauma associated with those types of crimes. And I have to tell you all that when I came into the Department of Violence Prevention in December, we were not focused on those most at risk of violence. We were doing some really important work, and we were serving people that needed services. But in terms of staying in our very specific lane and working with those most at risk of gun violence, that wasn't the case. So I spent the past 9 months revamping, reorganizing, retraining the department. And now we are centering those at the center of gun violence. And we do this in 2 key ways. I have a deployable team of life coaches, violence interrupters, and gender-based violence specialists that work for the city that I'm able to deploy. It's a small team of about 25. And then the other half of my team is focused on supporting community-based organizations. Many community-based organizations that you probably know and love, including Youth Alive, BOSS, which is not too far from here, Courage, Family Violence Law Center, etc. So we push out $15 million of your tax dollars, Measure Z dollars, out the door to the community-based organizations every year and provide intensive supports and capacity building to those community-based organizations. Because although they're doing great work, we really need to strengthen the ecosystem of community-based orgs in Oakland specifically because many of them are run by women, they're run by people of color, they're run by folks with lived experience who are traditionally locked out of government supports. As the mayor said, we are re-implementing the ceasefire lifeline-focused deterrence strategy. That means that my staff is focused on working with those at the center of violence who are not arrestable. OPD focuses on the folks that are arrestable. We get the folks that are not arrestable but that have still been identified as being at the center of violence, and we relentlessly pursue those individuals. We use a credible messenger model, meaning my life coaches, case managers, and violence interrupters have deep roots in community. They have trust across the community, and they are living, breathing examples that there is another choice and that we can help folks get on the other side of violence. The vast majority of them were either gang or group involved themselves, victims of violence, or formerly incarcerated. And so they're credible messengers as they go out into community and make those connections every day. We believe that the majority of individuals who find themselves caught in cycles of violence do want a way out, and we're there to provide that way out. We also understand that that requires an extremely intensive support system, including a case management model that involves daily contact with clients. So our clients that are on our caseloads are very small. We try to keep them between 8 and 10, and we have daily contact with clients. We create life goals, life maps. Sometimes we relocate clients out of Oakland if that's the only way to keep them safe and healthy. We provide job training, re-enrollment in schools, particularly for young people, because we know that not being enrolled in school creates significant risk and vulnerability for involvement in violence. We're focused on proactive conflict mediation. So if a shooting or a homicide happens, we deploy violence interrupters to the scene to identify the folks who may retaliate based on their relationships with those individuals. And then again, we relentlessly pursue the individuals at the center of violence to offer them a way off, and that way off is an intensive life coaching model that goes for 12 to 18 months. I'm gonna end by just thanking you all for being here, thanking you for your patience as we revamp and really instill a Department of Violence Prevention that this city can be proud of. And we believe in our capacity to reduce recidivism and reduce the footprint of the criminal justice system at the same time of keeping our clients safe and healthy and assisting them in choosing other ways.
Thank you, Dr. Holly Joshi, our DVP chief. Right on time. Thank you. Okay, we're going to do one more presentation before we start taking some questions. And you might see me up here going through the cards and putting them, I'm trying to cluster them. Many of you have the same questions, and so I'm grouping them so we can get to as many as possible. Chief Floyd Mitchell, he's up next. He began his career as a patrol officer with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. After 25 years of impeccable service with Kansas City, he accepted the police chief position for the city of Temple, Texas. In 2019, Mitchell was appointed as the 23rd police chief for the city of Lubbock, Texas, where he served until September of 2023. Chief Mitchell is a veteran of the United States Air Force. He has earned both his BSA and MBA degrees in business administration from Baker University and is a graduate of the Certified Public Manager program administered by Texas State University. He is a graduate of the 236th Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI's National Academy, Quantico, Virginia, and the Police Executive Research Forum's Senior Management Institute for Policing at Boston College, a man that has been around the country doing many, many things and is now with us in Oakland. Please give a warm welcome to our chief, Chief Floyd Mitchell.
Testing. Oh, that's loud. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. Like Brooklyn said, my name is Floyd Mitchell, and I'm extremely happy to be here in the city of Oakland. Next month, I will be here for a total of 4 months, so I'm still getting acquainted with a lot of folks here. I've been out in the community quite a bit. I've been to this church and worshiped, and I've enjoyed it and enjoyed meeting people. If I haven't met you personally, I can't wait to get out there and get a chance to meet you personally. Truly important position that I have here in the city of Oakland. And I take this responsibility on very seriously. My job, my number one focus is to make sure that I and the men and women of the Oakland Police Department are doing everything that we can with the resources we have to make Oakland as safe as we possibly can. I'm going to go over a few of my slides, but just realize I think it's important for everyone here to understand that you have a very good police department. Right now we have 691 police officers and just over 230 non-sworn civilian professionals that help us police the cities of Oakland. The summer safety plan, which rolls into the public safety plan, was one of the first things that I got to sit down and talk with Mayor Tao about. How do we go about making this summer safe? I got here just before school kicked out, and we knew all the kids were getting out of school. And how could we make sure we were doing everything that we possibly can to make the city of Oakland as safe as we possibly can over the summer session and moving forward. Our public safety plan involves several key points. That's the Crime Gun Intelligence Center. our criminal investigations unit, our traffic enforcement, and high visibility using our patrol officers. When you start off with our Crime Gun Intelligence Center, this is where we connect the dots. When we have violent crime out there, when I'm talking aggravated assaults using weapons, homicides, robberies and sexual assaults or rapes, these are what we consider our violent crimes, and we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to solve those crimes. We also have a lot of property crimes in the city of Oakland, and most of us have been, including me, have been a victim of a property crime, so I know it's important to most of our community. But we use our Crime Gun Intelligence Center to help us connect the dots. That is identifying evidence, DNA, and we use our NIBIN Center to identify which weapons are involved in each of these crimes. And when we catch these guns on folks, we're able to connect the dots and put key cases on individuals who are committing harm to our community. Our Criminal Investigation Division plays a key role in this. These are the detectives on the police department that go out and do the interviews, identify the suspects, and and write the reports and file the charges with the DA's office, whether it be the county DA's office or the state DOJ or our federal partners. We also want to make sure that we understand, I know just 2 weeks ago we had a fatality accident on International Boulevard. Our traffic unit, making sure that we are partnered with CHP and the Alameda County Sheriff's Office so we can have a presence on International Boulevard to combat the high speed that we're seeing going on down here. Not only on International Boulevard, but throughout the city. We have dedicated officers, a sergeant and 6 officers that are dedicated full-time to traffic enforcement throughout our city. I know that doesn't sound like a lot for a city of this size, but we have a large city, and we have a number of officers doing several different things throughout our community to make it safe. And when you talk about that, we want to talk about our foot patrol officers, our overtime assignments, and our patrol officers that are assigned to the 36 areas that are designated for the City of Oakland. We do everything we can to make sure each of these beats are covered every night, and we have a readout every morning that talks about what beats weren't covered, why they weren't covered, and what we can do to make sure that they're covered. And one of the things that I have emphasized since I've been here is we're going to do everything we can to make sure all of our beats are covered. Even when someone calls in sick, we need to pull somebody from somewhere else to make sure that beat is covered as best as we possibly can. We need to show high visibility as often and as best as we possibly can so people know that we are out in our community and we're doing everything we can to try to prevent those who want to do harm from doing harm in our community. We use our special resource section to overlap with our crime reduction team officers in specific areas to address specific crime issues throughout our city. There's a lot going on in this city. Just like the mayor said, we're just under 500,000. And I'll be the first to tell you that just under 700 officers is not enough to cover that. But that's what we have right now, and that's what we're working with. And we're going to do everything we can with the staff that we have to make sure everyone is as safe as we possibly can. The other big piece from my standpoint is making sure that we're partnershiping with other city departments as well as our faith-based community, our business community, and our nonprofits. It's important for our police department to partner with the Department of Violence Prevention, OCDOT when it comes to street sideshows and things like that, our encampment management team, which you'll hear more about later on, Macro, and our homeless outreach officers. Part of feeling safe within the City of Oakland is knowing that you have a safe community, a clean community, and that's what this is about, making sure that we are working and partnering together with all of our other city departments and nonprofits and business districts to do everything we can to make it safe. I know when you look at the statistics, you want to say that the statistics aren't telling the full story. No, a number can't tell the full story all the time. I can sit here and tell you that our violent crime has gone down 15% across the city. But that's hard to understand when you become a victim of violent crime, and I understand that. But the numbers are true, and I stand behind those numbers when I tell you our violent crime has gone down that much. The other piece of it, because we don't have all the officers that we need, is we use technology. I know most of you have heard of ShotSpotter. We have ShotSpotter, deployed throughout the city. It is a valuable tool that helps us identify where these rounds are going off, who's who's firing off these rounds, and when we collect those rounds at these different crime scenes, we're able to put those cases together. It may be down the road, it may be a year down the road, it may be 6 months down the road, but it is a valuable tool for us. That coincides with our cameras deployment. We have 290 cameras that are currently being installed and being deployed throughout the city of Oakland. This is only part of 400 cameras that are going to be deployed in the Bay Area citywide. It is going to connect to a real-time crime center at some point. But in the meantime, it is giving us valuable intelligence information for those that are doing harm in our community to allow our detectives to move forward and try to put those cases together and hold the individuals that are creating harm throughout our city accountable. And that's the big thing that I want to make sure we understand. I 100% believe in the ceasefire strategy, and there's a piece that if you want to help and you ask us for help, we're going to give you help. But if you continue to do harm to our community and cause harm to our community, you should be 100% held accountable for that. Other than that, we'll talk about our community support. Again, just working with our business improvement districts, our faith-based community, our schools, and our neighborhood groups. Just making sure that you understand that I am here to listen to you. I am here to work with you to solve the issues that are facing Oakland and its crime problem. And right on time.
All right. You guys are doing great. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Chief Mitchell. All right, we're going to start with our initial set of questions around crime and safety. Again, many of you have the same questions. Our hope is that the presentation so far and some of the information that's been shared by the mayor, by our DVP chief, and by our police chief have potentially answered some of those questions. I'm still going to ask them, even though they might have been presented, just so that we can get even more clear. So I'm going to start with a couple. The first question is for you, Chief. When are we going to see you in a uniform, and why are you always in a suit?
That is a great question. So I will tell you that I'll tell you my age first so you understand. I'm 57 years old, and I have been a police officer ever since I was 18 years old. As soon as I graduated high school, I went into the military and was a military police officer. After that, I got out and did 26 years on the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department as a police officer and been a police chief in the state of Texas for the last 9 years. California is like, we don't care. Which is very interesting. No, I'm in the second phase of the process because California is not a reciprocal state. So there's certain steps that they require that I go through before I can be a certified police officer within the state of Texas. The last phase of training that I have to go to is based on a schedule, and I don't get to go to that training until until October. So once I go to that training in October and get through that, I have my uniform. I've gone through all the qualification courses that we do internally in regards to firearms training and this, that, and the other. But the state of California is requiring that I go to a in-session school that starts in October. So I would say sometime the first or second week in November, I will be in uniform. I can't wait to get in uniform. So believe me, I'm just like you. I want to be in uniform as bad as anyone else.
He's running out of suits, y'all. He needs that uniform. All right, thank you for that question. All right, the next few questions, we're just gonna get back into the data. It's definitely something that comes up a lot, and these are actually some real specific questions. So one is asking to provide data for the violence prevention statistics. What are some success stories and what is working? And in that, if either Chief Joshi, I think maybe Chief Joshi, you can take this one. How do we use the weekly crime data in order to implement the ceasefire strategy? And how do we know it's working or not?
Great. So I'm going to start by talking about how data wasn't being used at the Department of Violence Prevention when I first got there. So the Department of Violence Prevention staff was working harder but not smarter, and also not focused specifically on the goal of real-time crime reduction. Right? It was much more of a long-term approach to crime reduction, which we have other city strategies that work on that. We have OFCY, we have Parks and Rec, but in terms of the Department of Violence Prevention and the way that DVPs and OVPs work across the country, we have to be focused on working with those that are at the center of violence and most likely to be involved in imminent violence, meaning within the next 90 days. right? And so that's how we contribute to violence and the numbers that are coming out from week to week. So what I've switched our performance metrics to include, and for my team to understand, is that we need to be watching the violent crime numbers every single week. And we do that in a team meeting at the mayor's office every week with OPD, with probation, with the mayor's office, and with my team as we go through the crime numbers, and that's what they're held accountable to. We also use performance metrics data. I'm looking week to week, not only at the team performance as a group, but at each individual case manager and how they're showing up for their clients. So there's no need for me to set a really high standard for a program delivery model if I'm not monitoring it and making sure that each client is getting that program model delivered to them day in and day out. So that's how the Department of Violence Prevention uses data. And I think the second part of the question was, what are some success stories?
Yes, I think that there's several people who are trying to figure out how we use the data and are there some success stories? How do we know it's working?
Yeah, so I'll tell a couple of cool stories, but I am gonna tell you guys that we're in the midst of an evaluation. We have Urban Institute, which is a fairly well-known external evaluator doing a Measure Z evaluation, because as voters, you all were smart enough to make sure that there was a requirement for an independent evaluator to look at your Measure Z dollars and specifically the DVP's performance every 3 years. So we're involved in that now, and we expect within the next couple of months to have a public report published by that independent evaluator that just really looks at not only how much did we do, that widget counting part of it, like how much work did we do, but also who and was anyone better for that work. So looking at transformation over time, and that's what Urban Institute is looking at now. And finally, just as to some success stories, last week I had the pleasure of going to a UC Berkeley graduation that involved 7 ex-Department of Violence Prevention clients. Those clients were doing a summer-long internship with UC Berkeley, learning how to be community-based researchers and learning how to be community violence interrupters. They all made it. They started with that number and they all graduated and got their $10,000 check from the University of California, and are now all putting their resumes together, updating and refreshing their resumes, working with those UC Berkeley professors to enter into the field of violence interruption. In fact, 2 of them are already working in the field. One of them has a full-time job at a community-based organization in San Francisco, and one of them is working here at a community-based organization in Oakland. And so in our mind, again, as we continue to create the pipeline of credible messengers that can do this work and fuel this community violence intervention work, those are success stories. If we can get folks on the other side of violence and really making it a career out of going back in and giving to the communities that they took from for so long.
Thank you, Chief Joshi. If you could answer this part 2, Chief Mitchell, there's folks who are trying to understand, it's a very nuanced thing around the data. Can you explain, you feel very confident about the violent crime, about those numbers going down, the crimes that happen to humans and are reported by humans to humans. What's the difference in how the property crimes are reported? And if you could explain the delay and why that delay takes place.
Yes, ma'am. So when you look at our weekly crime data that we put out, it'll show you that right now we're hovering right around just over 30% crime reduction across the city when you look at Part 1 crimes. Part 1 crimes are your murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, and a bunch of your property crimes that are in there. If you strip out property crimes, then you have Part 1 crimes against persons. That's your murder, rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. That is a person that is being physically harmed in that particular instance, as opposed to someone taking a backpack out of your car, breaking into your car, or stealing your car. That's a property crime versus a person's crime. When you look at our person's crime, we are down 15% in regards to murders, rape, robberies, and aggravated assaults. That other 15% is in that property crime category. When you use our online system to file a report regarding a property crime, meaning you woke up the next day and your car was broken into, or your car was stolen, or your wallet was stolen, or someone broke into your house, that is a property crime. If you have completed that report online, there is a delay because a police officer has to actually go into the database, look at that report and make sure that it is categorized correctly. And that is the delay that you are seeing. We all know that we get frustrated, and some people are like, well, you know what, this is the third time this has happened to me, I'm not going to report a crime. So is it 100% correct? No, because we know there's people out there that's not reporting it because they're like, okay, this item got stolen out of my yard, and it's a $2 item. I'm not going to worry about that getting stolen, or my window was broken. I had someone very close to me said, yeah, my car window got broken, and I just I called my insurance agent and had it replaced because I just did it because it's something that just happened. I'm like, why wouldn't you report that? Because it's happened before, and we don't know who's broke the window. There was nothing in my car, there was nothing stolen. So there is a plus or minus one way or the other in regards to, we know there's crimes that have not been reported. But all I can report on what is being reported, and that's something that you have to communicate to your community. On the crimes that are being reported, the numbers are what the numbers are. And I said this to a reporter last week at one of our sessions. I am not in any way, shape, or form going to jeopardize or compromise my integrity by telling you something that I know is not true. The numbers that I can give you is the numbers that I can give you. I'm not going to try to shave those numbers or make those numbers look better than what they are to try to gain favor with anybody, because the numbers are what the numbers are. If I tell you right now that the numbers, based on the last report that I have in front of me right now, that the numbers are 15% down, that's what the numbers are. I'm not trying to make that up for any reason at all.
Chief. Next question. So there's a lot of questions about response times, and they're broken into a few different sections. The first one is about the size of our police force. And so the question is how it feels like we don't have enough police. What is the plan to increase that number, or is there a plan to increase that number? And I don't know if Mayor, if you want to start, or Chief Mitchell.
I'll start off. I'm still a city administrator, Justin Johnson's line right now. Don't tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do. And when I first got here, I got to sit down with the city administrator, and I will tell you, that's a great hire. It's probably even better than the hire you did when you hired me. I'll just tell you right now, he's a great man, and just a sharp guy. But what we have right now is 691 officers. 2 officers retired this week. 1 retired today and 1 retired yesterday. So when we do the count again next week and I get my report, we're going to be down to 689. We are budgeted for 678. So right now we have more than what we're budgeted for. I will tell you, it's not enough. It's not enough for a city this size. This is the guy coming from outside telling you your business. It is not enough. But what you do have is a dedicated police department, and they're doing everything that they can with what we have, and we're going to continue to do that. The Office of Inspector General has authored a study to find out exactly what that number should be. I think it's going to come in right around 1,000 or 1,100 officers. Even if we had the money right now to hire another 500 officers, it would take us years to do that. There is a process that comes with that, but it doesn't mean you don't start strategically planning right now to do that. So what we're doing right now is we're getting the studies in to tell us this is what you need. And then we sit down with the city administrator and mayor and the council and talk about how do we get to that number to make sure that we are policing Oakland with the resources that we need. Brooklyn talked about it earlier. We can't afford that right now. It's going to take time, and it's going to take people making tough decisions on how do we get to the point to where we can afford that many officers. But we know we need to get there, and we're headed there, and we're thinking smartly, and we're thinking out of where we want to get to. And if you don't have a vision of where you want to get to, you're just wandering aimlessly in the desert, and I don't think any of us want to do that.
Can I add something?
Yeah. Mayor, while you add something, maybe there's a couple of folks who, I think there's a perception that you were in favor of defunding the police. So if you want to address that and then also talk about and expand on what the chief was saying with our budget constraints.
Absolutely. So the question around me being in favor of defunding the police, that's absolutely false. When I was on the city council, I advocated for more police. You know, that's disinformation. My record will show. You can go, all the city council meetings are recorded. I implore you to go and watch the city council meetings. Again, I don't have a reason to lie. I don't have a reason to flip-flop. It's always been my case that we needed more officers. And so it's about thinking about what we need to do to ensure that our system can hold us. For one, they cost money. So how are we leveraging to ensure that we have money, new money? Right? Not only do we have to pay for police officers, firefighters, we also have to think about how do we pay for workers to clean our streets. We have to think about how we pay for Head Start, all of these different programming that the city runs. And so with that being said, this is part of the economic development. You know, many administration has come and gone, and you have to start somewhere. You have to plant the seeds to create new generation and streams of revenue. And this is what we're already doing with the Coliseum, with the Ballers. There's more projects that's in the pipeline so that we can start planting these seeds in the community so that we can generate those revenues to get to the point where once that report comes out, we can start funding and have a plan and have the money to pay for more. Another part of that is that knowing that we don't have enough police officers on our streets, last year I made the call to the governor to give us CHP officers. And so that is why we're doing this partnership with the CHP to ensure that there's coverage across the whole city. I'm just letting you know what the facts are. You can disagree, but that's okay. And so with the CHP, not only are we working with them, but we're working with the DOJ and the Sheriff's Department as well, knowing that we do not have enough resources for patrol or visibility.
Thanks, Mayor. So I know that there's a lot of constraints on our budget right now. We're trying to bring in additional revenue that has an effect on the budget for all of our departments, including the police department. You've spoken to the role of technology to try to fill that gap. Can either you and or Chief Mitchell and or the city administrator talk about the cameras? There's been several questions about cameras. Can you talk about the flock cameras versus the speeding cameras, and what's the role of cameras as we try to continue to drive crime down?
Okay, so I'll start, then the chief, then DOT. So there's two sets of cameras. One set of the camera is the flock cameras. That is the cameras that last year, I, along with interim chief Allison at the time, we went and asked the governor to help us with the purchase of 290 cameras for the city of Oakland. These are real-time cameras. The idea behind this is that we would move our public safety in a direction where we know crime is fluid from city to city. So when we have the real-time crime center, just because you committed a crime in Oakland and then you start driving off into San Leandro, we're not gonna lose track of you. We'll be able to pull up the cameras and track you and follow the suspect until we can apprehend them in a safe way. A question becomes, well, all of the vehicles that are being utilized have no license plate or they're stolen. So how would that even help? That is a valid question. However, how this works is that the cameras, because it's real time, if you say, for example, there was a person who came out and robbed me at gunpoint and they were driving a white Honda Civic four-door, but I know that there were, these decals on it or what have you. What we can do is pull up in the cameras all the white Honda Civic four-doors, and then we can look for that specific detail of that vehicle so that we can start tracking it and follow the suspect. The other thing is that we're working to have drones. These are first responder drones. So again, last year I directed OPD to go have a conversation with the FAA to get clearance so that when you call 911 and there are no officers available for a priority one call, right? If there's a shooting or what have you, we can send the drones up immediately and start recording the scene, the crime scene, so that we have that footage and it's being relayed in real time to our officers so that we can still track down the suspect if they leave the crime scene. We know that the crimes, when it's robberies or what have you, it's just seconds, matter of seconds. And so if we can send up the cameras to find the suspect, we can still track him down. All of the different neighboring cities, San Francisco, Alameda, San Leandro, Emeryville, we're all using the same flock cameras. So that means we all can do sharing of these different video footages.
I'll jump in real quick. First and foremost, I think it's important for our community to understand that We are at a crossroads when it comes to public safety in the city of Oakland. We have, I am 100% a proponent of constitutionally correct and procedurally just policing, especially when it comes to our Black and brown community that have been marginalized. Technology plays a key role in us, meaning law enforcement, being able to identify those who are causing harm throughout our community. We have to work hand in hand with our Privacy Commission. We have to understand that the communities around us are doing laps around the city of Oakland when it comes to the implementation of technology, especially when it comes to how we use technology to prevent and reduce crime throughout our community. I am fully on board with working with our Privacy Commission to understand how we use cameras in a real-time crime center, how we use drones to help us respond to calls for service and identify those that are creating harm and identify the suspects, how we use ShotSpotter to help us identify where these rounds are going off and help us connect the dots. It's important that we use all this technology that is available to us and the communities around us are using to help them prevent crime. And when you look at the city of Oakland and you look at our crime rate, there's things that we can do right now to help us reduce crime and identify those folks and hold them accountable.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, we're going to do 2 more quick answers, about the cameras. Folks are wondering, have they been installed? And, and if so, how many or when can they be expected to be used? And then second question is, how is it determined where they're placed?
So I'll talk about the flock cameras. The flock cameras, right now there's about 100, a little over 100 that are installed right now, the 290 that are going to be in the city of Oakland. There may be more that the state, the CHP has put up, but I know right now we're just over 100 cameras of our 290. They're identified based on on-ramps, off-ramps, where we're having high crime, instances of high crime. They will not become active until our officers get the training for them, meaning they're up and running, but we're not giving them access to it yet, and that training is supposed to take effect beginning, I want to say in 2 weeks from now, starting the 15th of September is when we will start doing the training to get our officers to follow the rules and regulations and policies that we have in place right now regarding privacy issues and things like that. Again, we do want to make sure that we are following our policies to the letter.
Thank you. So relatedly, the speed cameras. Go ahead, Director.
Real quickly, Josh Rowan, the Director of Oakland Department of Transportation. We're participating in a state pilot for the speed enforcement cameras. Those are 18 cameras that will go on the high entry network. They have not been installed. We actually have to prove to the state that they're reducing speeding. There are a lot of conditions attached to those. They're totally separate from the Oakland Police Department. Would actually be happy to come out at a later time to give a separate presentation on the details related to those, but that is actually a DOT-led effort in cooperation with the state as part of a pilot study.
Thank you, Director. Okay, one more before I have some specifically for you, Chief Joshi. They're specific to DBP, but this one is related to sideshows. I think it was good to follow up on the cameras. Will the cameras be able to support addressing sideshows, and what else can we share about our approach to addressing sideshows?
With respect, Justin Johnson, City Administrator, with respect to the support that the cameras could have to get a handle on sideshows, so it gives us a visual representation of what's going on in a real-time environment, which is critical. I think one of the key elements is the fact that once the crowd starts to grow, we end up being a little late to the party. And so once we call, and our community calls 911, we also recognize that it does take time, and OPD recognizes that given that we are where we are with the number of officers that are deployed at that point in time, this provides a more realistic real-time opportunity, hence the real-time crime center, real-time camera network that allows us to respond far more quickly than we have in the past. And I know many high-performing cities here locally and around us, they have this type of technology anyway. And so it certainly is an opportunity for us and this administration, for us to really get ahead of what we've been lacking for so long.
Testing. Just quickly, I'll jump in real quick. Each weekend, every Friday and Saturday night, we have a sideshow detail. It's about 25 to 30 officers that work strictly sideshows. We are paying attention to what's going on in social media, and we are beating them to a lot of their scenes. We can't get them to all because they're working quickly. But one of the things that we are doing right now is we're working with our city attorney's office, and we have identified and are writing I guess, filing charges, municipal charges, in regards to the promotion of these. And we're going to see how far we can get with this to see if this will be a deterrent for those that are promoting sideshows, to see if we can get something, get this curbed.
So, real quick question that just came in. How long until officers are trained? Like, what's the training process for the flock cameras, Chief?
Well, I just think it's a day's worth of training, just a few hours worth of training, how to log in, what they can do and what they can't do.
All right, one more question related to response. There's several questions about response times in 911. Can any one of you or all of you, whoever has something to offer, share what the status is with the upgrades to 911?
Yeah, I'll talk about 911. Right now we have, I've got that number somewhere. Let me check my notes here. You said quickly, it's not going to be quickly. Right now, we are authorized 79 dispatchers. We have 69 of those filled. That was a question that was asked a few days ago, so I went back and made sure I had the numbers. So right now, we're down 10 dispatchers. When you look at our 911 system, we get a million calls a year. Not all of them are calls that end up being dispatched. So when we work with our other partners, and I know you're going to hear about Macro in a little bit and 311, but if we could divert all those calls that aren't 911, or have them call the correct agency, that would help us out a lot. But when you have that many calls, and we have to prioritize them. We're prioritizing priority 1, 2, and 3 calls. Priority 1s are the most drastic calls, or those calls where life and limb are at stake here. So those are the calls that get dispatched first. If you have a property call come in and there's 10 or 12 or 30 or 40 or 50 priority 1 calls, that property crime call or that priority 3 call is going to get delayed. And it's not something that that you as the victim or I as the chief of police want to have to communicate to you that, yeah, I understand that you're waiting 4 hours to have someone come by and take this property crime call. It's something that we're working on, and we are making the difficult decisions as we are attritioning down of pulling people from inside administrative positions, putting them in cars to try to reduce that as best as possible. So it's not something that that we're proud of. Right now, I think we started off at 43 or 47%, and right now we're about 52% of responding to or picking up those 911 calls within the first 15 seconds.
Chief, do you know what it represents, the number of current dispatchers and where we were in the beginning?
I do not know where we were in the beginning. I know, like I say, of that 69 that are filled right now, we have roughly 18 that are still in training, meaning they're not on a console by themselves yet. And we're always hiring for this position. It is a great position. I would love to have you as part of our police family. If you know someone who is interested in being part of the police family and you're not wanting to wear a uniform or a badge and a gun, but you want to be to support us, we're always hiring for communications, telecommunicators.
Thank you.
I would just add that coming in, there was about 20 to 30 vacancies in 911 dispatch. And so we did a priority hire with Justin Johnson directing the HR department to do those priority hires. We did change how we hire our dispatchers. So previously we were just hiring people as they come in and apply. Now we're treating them like how we treat the fire department and police department, with bringing them in as a cohort. They have, the sworn personnel are academies, but we call these cohorts. We know that 911 dispatchers, they're getting calls every day for people's worst day possible. And so it's very emotionally taxing. And so to have each other, to lean upon each other, is going to create an environment for success for many of these dispatchers, because we do see that dispatchers, they leave quite frequently just because it takes an emotional toll upon everybody.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so
Brooklyn,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just want to answer the question around the technology piece. One thing that's also important to know, and Chief, forgive me, you may have stated this already, the City of Oakland received last year almost 1 million calls for service on last year. And for a city of this size, the magnitude, that is significant. So one of the things that we also acknowledge, Mayor, was month 6 that you were here when the 911 center went down. When that 911 center went down, just imagine the critical mass that we experienced. But the fact of the matter is, you have technology that was in place, that had been in place for decades. And it wasn't, and we're talking about a project that had been on the launching pad for several years. So we worked very closely with the mayor's office, and others within City Hall to make sure that our IT department had the opportunity to implement all of the different pieces and aspects of an upgraded 911 center. The 911 center, it took us about 9 months or so to get that technology installed, and as of June of last year, that technology has been installed. We're still sort of finalizing some of the testing that we had to do, but the technology has been completely upgraded to this point.
All right, thank you so much. I just want to give a heads up that if it's okay with you all, we know we got a little bit of a late start, so we're going to go past 7:30. I'm giving the panel. Is everyone okay with that? Hopefully you all are available. If you need to leave, that's fine. I just want to make sure we can get to as many questions as possible, so just giving a heads up in case folks need to notify folks. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Pastor Jackie. We got you. Okay, Chief Joshi. Obviously, we deal with crime in our city. Crime can cause all sorts of trauma, post-traumatic stress, chronic trauma, all of those things. Although the county is responsible for most of our mental health services, what does the City of Oakland do to help support victims of crime and that have dealt with trauma? I know the DVP has a role in that, and also OPD has a role in that.
Yeah, so again, the vast majority of folks that we're serving inside the DVP and that our community-based organizations are serving are either survivors of gender-based violence, so human trafficking, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, or gun violence. And of course, with gun violence, today's victim is tomorrow's perpetrator of gun violence, and vice versa. So oftentimes we're working with folks that have complex trauma, that are trying to deal with that trauma, and we're trying to help them deal with that trauma so that they don't pick up a gun and retaliate. And to your question, all of our life coaches, i.e. our intensive case managers, are trained in motivational interviewing, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, and we also are supporting community-based organizations that have therapists on site that we're able to send clients to for certified therapy. There's also alternative modes of therapy for clients who aren't interested in talk therapy. We've learned over the years that not all clients feel comfortable talking to therapists. Some folks want a somatic experience. Some folks want to do, healing experience that are more focused on the body and physical healing. So we have many nonprofits that we fund that have those offerings. And again, we're also trained in-house to support clients in a trauma-informed way.
Right, and I just will say that the Oakland Police Department also has a staff, that supports victims of crime and helps them to tap into state funding to help support covering the cost of funerals and things like that. Okay, another question for you, Chief Joshi. There's one specifically about the schools. And so there's a teacher here from OUSD. Shout out to all our OUSD teachers or any staff that works in the schools. We appreciate you so much. So the question is, can violence prevention funds be used in OUSD? They're acknowledging the amount of work that the principals and other administrators have. And so this is a question around, is it possible to use violence prevention funds to go to OUSD towards helping manage case managers, life coaches, and stuff like that? So what are we doing to support the schools?
Yes, absolutely, of course. Our young people are our priority at the Department of Violence Prevention for sure, and we really understand the difficult job that teachers and principals are doing at OUSD, so thank you for all the hard work. Yes, we are funding OUSD violence intervention programs. So you all remember that when the George Floyd murder happened in 2020, that Oakland Unified School District voted to disband their school police department, which meant that they needed to come up with an alternative safety plan. I have to shout out Brooklyn Williams because she actually led the charge of supporting Oakland Unified School District to come up with a pilot program to really try and implement this alternative community-led safety plan in schools. And so what that looks like at this point now, a few years later, is we're still in a pilot phase, but the Department of Violence Prevention, the City of Oakland, is funding what we call VIP teams made up of a life coach, a gender-based violence specialist, and a VI, a violence interrupter, at 7 Oakland high schools. And that's coming out of the City of Oakland's money. And not only are we funding it, but we're providing all of the training and technical assistance needed for those schools to implement the program and the model with fidelity. We actually had Ms. Brooklyn Williams and some folks from OUSD go down to the conference in Los Angeles to present this model, and it was extremely well received, and folks are wanting to adopt it at school districts across California. Again, it's a pilot, so we're learning as we go. We're getting feedback from students and teachers and principals as we go. And we are also looking to work with OUSD to enter into some grants to raise additional funds needed to make it more widespread within the OUSD system.
Thank you, Chief. Question about is the Department of Violence Prevention in the city partnering with the public health department that just has a newly formed Department of Violence Prevention, or something around violence in the county?
Yeah, so I did, one of my first meetings when I came in and was doing my listening sessions was with the county's new Office of Violence Prevention. And what I learned was that they are definitely in the infancy of forming it. And so what it looks like now is about 3 people. And those folks are mainly focused on getting grants out to community-based organizations across the county that are focused on violence prevention. Of course, I had my advocacy hat on because I was just freshly coming from community-based organizations. And I was like, so is the most of this money gonna go to Oakland? And they were like, we're responsible for the whole community, the whole county. And I was like, but most of the violence and the need is in Oakland, and most of the community-based organizations that have the skill sets that you need in order to implement a community violence interventions response live in Oakland. So I know that the county sent out millions of dollars in RFPs recently, and large chunks of that went to community-based organizations in Oakland.
All right, 2 more for you, Chief. It's another one around staffing. We're short on money. The question is are there enough violence interrupters, life coaches, et cetera, to meet all the needs to accomplish the goals of the DVP?
Absolutely not. I said the Department of Violence Prevention is 50 people at this point, and we all can look around and we're living and feeling the need. So as the city struggles with this current budget deficit, what I'm thankful for is that I spent 10 years in community-based organizations and walked away with a very important skill, which is finding and getting grants. So I have a really great grant writer on staff, and together with her, we've been writing grants very viciously since I walked in the door, and we're waiting to hear from 3. 2 federal grants and 1 grant from a private entity, and all 3 of those grants are several $1 million and very much focused on DVP direct service staff. So I'm feeling confident. Several of those, 2 out of the 3 grants we were actually invited to write. So you all know that when you receive that invitation, it means that they're already looking at your model and interested in receiving your application. So I'm thinking that within the next month or so, we'll be hearing back from those, and that will pour several $1 million into the Department of Violence Prevention.
All right, thank you. One last question for you, and then we're going to turn to the clean city portion of our agenda. I will come back to as many questions as we can about safety. We've covered some good ground. How will the DVP personnel coordinate with the community? And will the DVP staff be available, or how can folks contact? Is it phone, email, so a resident can contact them directly?
Yes, so the DVP partners deeply with community now, and I know that it's not enough. Again, it's a small 25-person team of deployable violence interrupters and life coaches trying to respond to and prevent violence all across the city. But they are, again, folks that have deep roots in Oakland, and they're reaching out consistently to people that they've grown up with, folks that they came up with, to really understand the temperature and what the conflicts are happening between gangs and groups in Oakland. One of the things that we're getting ready to do on October 1st, actually, that should make a visible difference in your communities is switch our model. We also have community violence interrupters in our community-based organizations that work with us and partner with my deployable team. But they're all really on a response cycle. So they're spending most of their time responding to homicides and shootings at 2, 3 in the morning. And many of those homicides and shootings that they're responding to, by the time they get there, there's really no scene any longer, right? Everyone has moved up to the hospital, there's no scene, etc. So we're getting ready to switch the model so that they're only responding to scenes in the middle of the night if they are hot and if there are people there to try and intervene with. Other than that, they're going to spend the vast majority of their time doing proactive violence intervention in community, which is more traditional street outreach work. You all who've been here a while remember the outreach workers who used to have the white and yellow jackets. So we're going to go back to that model which worked in Oakland, but I wish that we could do both, but we have to make a decision. And if we're making a decision, it's going to be proactive versus reactive.
Okay, thank you so much, Chief, and thank you all for your questions. We have many more that we're going to get to. It's time to move to our fire chief and his presentation and his role in keeping our city safe, and also Macro's role with his manager here. He'll talk about that. So Chief Damon Covington has been Oakland's fire chief since October 2023. Prior to this appointment, Chief Covington served in an array of capacities over his 24-year career with Oakland Fire, including fire paramedic, fire engineer, lieutenant of fire, captain of training, battalion chief, special ops chief, deputy fire chief, and most recently, interim fire chief. Chief Covington's educational accomplishments include a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Sonoma State University and a master's degree in Executive Public Administration from Golden Gate University. Chief Cov was the president of the Oakland Black Firefighters Association from 2016 to 2022, and previously served as the chair of the Rodeo Hercules Fire Protection District, respectively. Additionally, he currently serves as an adjunct professor for Merritt College, where he lectures in his undergraduate fire science program. Please give a warm welcome to another Oakland native, our fire chief, Chief Damon Covington.
Good evening. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone in the room that took time out of their evening. If your day was anything like mine, it was long, with a lot of meetings, and you're tired. But you care enough about Oakland to still come and talk about your concerns. So I really appreciate that. I really feel great about being on this stage with this group of people, because they're as passionate about getting Oakland to where it needs to be as you are. So together as a team, there's no doubt in my mind that we'll get Oakland back to where it needs to be and get it back on the right track. Having said that, I'm gonna be brief with my statements. I know you guys have plenty more questions you wanna ask, but I did wanna talk a little bit about your Oakland Fire Department. The Oakland Fire Department is one of the oldest departments in the city. We've been here since 1869. You have a fabulous, passionate group of individuals that serve you. We respond to over 85,000 calls annually with 25 stations. It's a lot of calls per station. Some of our stations run 20 plus calls a day, and they're up around the clock responding to 911 calls. What I really want you to understand about the Oakland Fire Department is that it's not just the engines and trucks that you see on the streets. The Oakland Fire Department is a vast organization with many divisions. We have our Fire Prevention Bureau, who does over 30,000 inspections of your homes, making sure you have defensible space, making sure the goats are doing what they need to do, making sure that we're cutting back our trees. I've gotten all your emails and phone calls about Grass Valley, about Skyline. You will see a vast difference over the next 30 days. Between now, hopefully you've seen some already, but I'm an East Oakland kid, so you never have to worry about me forgetting about East Oakland. We are partnering with a couple of organizations, starting at the end of September and into October. You'll see a lot of that overgrowth on Grass Valley to Skyline cut back and cleaned up. So keep your eyes open for that. We also have our dispatch center. We have our macro team, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I brought my esteemed colleague with me to talk a little bit about macro. We have multiple divisions of the fire department other than the engines and trucks you see going up and down the street. Macro is one of the main divisions I want to talk to you guys about. Macro is our mobile assistance community responders of Oakland. Has anybody ever heard of Macro? Okay, we'll take your boos. Macro is, we just finished our pilot program. Macro is just over 2 years old. Macro is intended to be, was started to be our alternative delivery model that helps OPD with mental health crisis calls. That's what we started Macro to be. In the last 2 years, Macro has taken over 3,500 calls. Many of those calls were from OPD with people who were having mental health crisis. When someone's having a mental health crisis, they don't need someone to show up with a gun, and they really don't need the fire department to show up. They need someone who can show up and offer them services, who has de-escalation skills, and who has the ability to help them in that moment. And that's what Macro is doing. However, many of you have emailed myself or Elliot or other members of the Macro team and said, here's what we think Macro should be doing. Here's what Macro's not doing. I thought you said Macro was going to do this. Great, we want to hear your feedback. Macro is in its infancy stages. I believe over the next 5 to 10 years, Macro will go to the forefront of our delivery model for the Oakland Fire Department. Because the mental health crisis is growing in America, we want to grow Macro with that, but we want to grow Macro in the right way. We want to grow Macro in a way that fits Oakland and that meets the demand of what Oakland needs. Oakland is a very unique city. I've only been to one Oakland in my life. Never been anywhere else that felt like Oakland. And for those of you who are from Oakland and who grew up in Oakland, you understand what I mean. Oakland has its own cadence. So we want to build a program that is at the forefront of these alternative delivery models. And we want to build a program that fits Oakland. And we want to build a program that has the input of Oakland and its citizens at the forefront of what we're doing. So I'm working diligently with our public safety team and with Elliot Jones, who's our Macro manager, to make sure that we are hearing from you. So we'll have public forums where you're able to talk about your interactions with Macro, what you think Macro can do better, and we're going to build that into the evolution of Macro. So whoever booed, please join. Please join in the conversation and help us make Macro the best it could be. Before I turn the mic over, I got to make my pitch. We have so many divisions of Oakland, and as every director that you've heard from today has said, we need more people. Regardless of the budget crunch, that's temporary. We need more people, but we just don't want anybody. We want Oaklanders to come and be part of the Oakland Fire Department family. You don't have to kick in doors and put out fires. You could be a dispatcher, you could be an inspector, you can work in admin. There's so many areas of the Oakland Fire Department that you can be part of. We want to make these jobs and opportunities available to our citizens. And we want to make sure that Oakland continues, our fire department continues to reflect the community with diversity, with women, with people who speak different languages. So if it's not you, if you're like, I'm too old for this stuff, recruit some of these youngsters. We have a full-fledged program through Merritt College that will train you in everything you need to know to get hired. So come on aboard, we'd love to have you, and we're looking forward to getting Oakland to where it needs to be. Thank you.
Hello? Okay. Thank you, Chief Covington. There's a couple questions for you that I just came across. I'm going to go ahead and just do this with you. So macro, you talked about that macro program. This question is specifically about how we're addressing mental health issues in our city. So I know that that's not the only thing macro addresses, or maybe this question is for you, Elliot, but when we have our neighbors or our residents who are struggling with mental health issues, how does macro respond and what do they do?
Absolutely.
It takes a second, just keep.
Takes a second. Oh, there we go. Good evening, everybody. My name is Elliot Jones. I'm the program manager of the Macro program. For the question, first, let's talk about how you can reach Macro. There are two primary ways to reach Macro. One, you can email us directly at macro@oaklandca.gov. And the other way is to reach us by phone. And I'll say the phone number about 4 times. It's 510-44-MACRO. 510-44-62276. 510-44-62276. If you utilize those, you will be sent to the fire dispatch center, and then you will be connected directly to a team. How Macro is able to address the low acuity mental health calls that come into the 911 system into Macro directly is responding with a team that is going to bring compassion first. We understand that not every mental health issue is a mental health crisis. There is a county level team that is able to deal with crisis, but so much happens before we get to crisis. What we have found in the 2.5 years in service is that we can meet you with kindness before you get to crisis. That we can be there to offer you some of the basic needs so that you do not require an ambulance or a fire truck or other emergent services for something that was clearly preventable. These simple actions may not stand out by themselves, but as a whole, it demonstrates how little you have to do to make an impact in somebody's life. And I would rather spend a day passing out water than having multiple people do the rotation of the ambulance to the IV to Highland to back on the street. Our ambulance coverage, our firefighters need to be ready in this community to respond to any medical emergency that pops up. And unfortunately, they're not able to do that whether they're addressing somebody that appears to be sleeping, somebody that is just in need of a little wellness check, somebody that's having a minor health issue, and this is where Macro comes in. We are not beholden to the same limitations as emergency departments. We can show up every day, and we often do multiple times, because we're chipping away at the trauma and the burden that is built up in decades for people that are out there. And what we have seen already is that a little compassion, a little empathy can go a long, long way. Now, I will promise you right now that we do not know what the next 5 years will hold. But I will tell you this, that Macro will evolve and grow with this community, within this department, and under the leadership of the people up here to address your concerns, to better serve your needs, and to help those that need help. Because the City of Oakland's motto is love life. Macro embodies that every day in our mission. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Manager Jones. Okay, we do have a question about fire specifically. And so, what's that, the number? Oh, one more time, the number, please.
510-44-MACRO or 510-446-2276.
All right, Chief, thank you so much, Elliot. Chief Cove, or maybe whoever else. This one is about fire risks in some of our residents who are from the hills here in less populated areas. What's the city going to do to monitor, capture, fine, and prevent folks from the overgrowth in the high-risk fire areas?
Thank you for that question. Last year, we passed one of the most comprehensive vegetation management programs in the country. We worked on it for 7 years. It was approved by council. It talks about some of the things that you're seeing now that we talked about, cutting back dead and dying vegetation, falling ukes that are dying or have died, and clearing lots from people who no longer take care of those lots. It talks about 100 feet of defensible space around your homes, so that if a fire does come through, your home has a chance of making it through that fire. We do 30,000 vegetation management inspections annually. And in November, you're going to see a ballot manager that we're hoping passes, that we can fund even further to really fill out the rest of the vegetation management plan. So we have a comprehensive plan to make our city fire safe and to keep our city fire safe. And that, a lot of it runs through the hills in the high fire severity zones, but it's everywhere in the city, whether it's in the flats, Grass Valley, Montclair, wherever you are in the city, you are part of the vegetation management plan. And we are continuing to build it out and fund it so that our entire city can be fire safe, not just the hills.
All right, thank you so much. So we're going to now turn to the portion around the clean city with presentations from Public Works as well as our Department of Transportation. Brief presentations. I'm going to be real quick. So I'm going to introduce our city administrator real quickly. Justin D. Johnson is our city administrator. He came to Oakland in May 2023 after an exhaustive nationwide search for our next city administrator. He's worked in municipal and county governments for nearly 2 decades, including serving as a deputy chief operating officer in Atlanta, where he worked closely with public safety agencies and led development of significant capital projects. He also previously served as the assistant county manager for the unified government of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, as city manager of Bisbee, Arizona, and as management assistant to the city manager for the city of Tucson, Arizona. Before this role, he served as IBM's corporate social responsibility manager. Please give a warm welcome to someone I partner with every single day, our new city administrator, Justin Johnson.
Thank you, Brooklyn. And so thank you as well for just giving us the space and opportunity to come and share and hear and answer questions. Very briefly, I wanted to acknowledge our city auditor, Michael Houston, who's up front. Thank you for your partnership and always holding us accountable. So thank you, sir. Very briefly, I just want to share that, in this role, we have a responsibility of making significant choices, and oftentimes those choices come with trade-offs. And we recognize the fact that this panel and this discussion in this town hall is about trade-offs. Specifically, how do we focus on clean and safe? That is a focus, that is a priority. And these two gentlemen to my left will share a little bit about themselves, but more specifically about the work that we're doing to make sure that the trade-offs will see benefit in the community. Also, in my role and capacity, I have the opportunity to really identify and reallocate resources where necessary, help us get more organized. One of the ways in which we're doing that is leading an effort for a citywide strategic planning process. The recognition that at the end of the day, I think Chief Mitchell mentioned it, we can't be a wayward ship, so we've got to make sure we are organized in what it is that we do day in and day out, and that's one of the key areas that I'm glad that our leadership team is really honing in on so that we can focus. We can certainly walk and chew gum at the same time, and so this is not a process that's going to take us away from the work that has to get done. Also, one of the things that I am harping on for all of our city leaders is, I think Chief said it, don't tell me what you don't have, tell me what you can do with what you got. One of the key things that we also are doing is leveraging partnerships to make sure that we can get the work that we need to get done. And so I think he may have left, but we partner very closely with an organization as an example, the Beautification Council. The recognition that, our public service, our public works employees, they're working as hard as fast as we can, but sometimes we need a little bit of help. And so we make sure we lean in on those partnerships on a regular basis to make sure we can deliver the services that you all are expecting and, quite frankly, should continue to demand from us at a high quality level. The last thing I wanted to just make sure that I share, very early on when I arrived, the mayor was very explicit that we have to focus on hiring in some of our frontline areas, specifically in and around Public Works and the Department of Transportation. It was made very, very clear, so I'm very delighted the fact that we've been able to get significant traction. There's more work that we have to do to make sure that we can get the employees that we need, and these are positions that are outside of our main sort of bucket of funding called the general fund, and we can certainly get into that when we get into the budget process. But we have an opportunity to really hone in and focus to make sure we can deliver on the services that you all are expecting from us, specifically in the area of Public Works in the Department of Transportation, which these two gentlemen will share a little bit about. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to work with you all, and like Chief Cub always says, there's one Oakland, and don't nobody love Oakland like y'all. And so it's nice to have the opportunity to be a part of this organization and support y'all as best as I can. So thank you.
So Director Huffed, just letting you know you got 3 minutes. And because there's a bunch of questions, so you'll be able to say more, but I want to make sure that the people's questions are answered.
Okay, well, I want to say, first of all, I want to apologize for being late. I was with my staff. One of my business lines is dealing with homelessness. And that's a really big encampment, it's a really big issue. And I was telling my staff, I was saying, we were looking at the 15 encampments that we closed this past 2 weeks. And I was telling my staff, why aren't we letting the people know this? Because they're saying, y'all ain't doing nothing. They keep saying, y'all ain't doing nothing. But that's not true. And let me tell you one thing about this. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've been trained by the Department of Justice. I'm a city manager by trade. I have been dealing with terrorism in terms of cyber attacks. I built communities, work with multinational corporations. But let me tell you this, Oakland. This is the hardest job I have ever had, having to try to address the unhoused and the homeless issue. And here's why. The City of Oakland passed an encampment management policy, and that policy on paper is perfect. And then the federal government came in and said, you can't remove encampments until you offer everybody a place to sleep. And so the city couldn't do that. So then what happened was grant passed. And that's the most recent law that says we can now be more aggressive, and we're going to be focusing on certain areas. We're going to focus in on making sure that there's ADA access, that there's access to schools, access to parks. And one of the key components in the encampment management plan says this: there shall be no encampments within 50 feet of a residence or business. And so we are going to be focusing in on doing just that. And so here's the deal. You can listen to what I'm saying, and if I don't prove what I'm saying, then you can disband it. But what I'm saying is this: give me an opportunity to show you what we can do under the new law. Now, there are other things that are in my business line. One is illegal dumping. Now, here's the thing. How many people in here have trash service at your house? Everybody does, right? You have trash service. I asked that question. I expect 100% of the hands to show they have trash service. So let me ask you this question. If everybody has trash service, why is it that my crew in Public Works picked up 20,000 tons of illegal material on City of Oakland streets? Because if I ask that same question about trash service, only 85 to 90% of our businesses actually have trash service. Okay? And that's a problem. What we need to do is make sure that those businesses actually have trash service. And we're working on doing just that. What can you do to help? Here's the thing. If you have a house or you have an apartment and you are trying to get it cleaned, and some guy comes along with a pickup truck with boards on the side that say, I'll haul this away, guess where he's taking that material? He's taking it right out of your house and he's dumping it on your street somewhere. So if you hire somebody to do this, make sure this: don't pay anybody to take stuff away without getting those dump slips. Because ultimately, in the end, you are going to be the responsible party when we do enforcement to try to make sure that we clean up our city streets. Now listen, there's 60 employees in Public Works. And there's 60 employees in Public Works that do illegal dumping. And I said they collected 20,000 tons of material last year. That's about 35 pounds of trash for each resident in Oakland that's dumped on our city streets. So we have more work to do, and we are going to be doing enforcement through cameras and through our environmental enforcement officers. But you can also help us by, if you have an area in your city, in your neighborhood, that you want to adopt a spot or clean the location, you can actually raise your hands in the back there, adopt a spot team. You can sign up with them to adopt a local spot in your neighborhood. We'll provide you with materials and the trash can that we'll collect the material for you at the end of the week. And so those are just some of the ways in which you can help us do this. I'm also responsible for making sure that our vertical and horizontal infrastructure that we build in the city, thanks to the residents of Oakland, measure you, measure KK. So no matter what these people are telling you about the city's financial crisis, there is some general fund crisis, but the residents of Oakland have given us over $1 billion to build community centers, to build parks, to libraries. So we do have that money, and my responsibility is to make sure that we build those things as quickly as possible. And so I just want to say we're also doing things like something called Oakland Fresh. And what Oakland Fresh does is we'll be going into community, partnering with the community, and we will look at the entire street, and we will pave it, stripe it, clean it, prune it. We'll do all those things in those particular areas. So we're looking for those pilot programs. We've had some success on International Boulevard, but there is room for improvement. As I said before this, work with me, and I will work with you, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Again, my name is Josh Froh. I'm the Director of Oakland Department of Transportation. Just quick introduction. I was Atlanta's Transportation Commissioner. I'm a civil engineer from Georgia Tech. Just want to give a quick update on the Oakland Department of Transportation. My first day on the job, I visited our construction crews, and one of our supervisors told me, I don't work for the Oakland Department of Transportation, I work for the Deep East Oakland Department of Transportation. I didn't know what he meant that day, but I do now. And so I'm here to brag a little bit on the front end of this presentation about the folks who work for our team, and because these folks are your friends and your neighbors, and they show up every day, and they're proud of the work they do, and I'm proud of the work that they do. And so if you look at this first slide, I want to draw your attention to the bottom. 10-year window from 2008 to 2018. About 100 miles were paved in the city of Oakland. That's actually quite a bit of paving to pave 100 miles of street. The team did that in the last 4 months. We paved 40 miles in 4 months. So a lot of work is getting done. If you look at the second bullet point, 81,000 potholes were repaired in the same 10-year period. Last year we repaired 53,000. So there's quite a bit of work that's being done by this team. Again, they're very proud of the work they do to serve the community, and I'm proud of the work that they're producing as well, and it's quite a privilege to work with them. The second thing I want to talk about is we know about DOT as streets and sidewalks, but there's a public health element to what we do. We've talked about the sideshows. One of the things that I've been doing, and I really credit, I was able to go to the East Oakland Senior Center and present to a group there. And at the end of the presentation, I thought, well, I had done a pretty nice job. And one of the ladies in the group asked me, so can we expect to see you next year? And it kind of hurt my feelings, the thought that she wasn't expecting more than a once-a-year visit. And so I've been coming to East Oakland once a week since then to learn about hands-on what's going on. So I'd like to just take a minute to speak specifically to the sideshows because we've already had so many questions. Historically, from a traffic perspective, we look at it as engineers that this isn't something we were taught about. There's no literature. There's nothing really in our textbooks that say, here's what we do. That's a totally unacceptable answer. I've seen the frustration in the community. I've seen the anger. I've seen people in this community ready to punch a hole in the table. I've had people come talk to me and break down in tears. We have developed some designs that we think will disrupt the behavior. We're actually going to test build a few of them next week in our yard. So more to come on that. But what I would ask you is, this is uncharted territory for us. So show us some grace. We're gonna try some new things. We truly believe we can disrupt this behavior in partnership with our colleagues at the Oakland Police Department, because we do believe that once the intersection has been taken over, it's so difficult to regain control. So we want to be as annoying to them as they are to you. How can we disrupt this behavior in those intersections? And so, you're going to see things start to come out from us in the month of September, but that was really influenced by you all, by the time that we spent on Thursdays here in East Oakland and the stories that you shared with me. So you may not realize it, but you have a very strong influence right now in the Department of Transportation, and I really appreciate the voice that you've shared and the input you've shared, because it's really has meant a lot to me and is influencing the decisions we've made. And so thank you for that.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so let me stop the timer. You did good, Josh. Appreciate you. Okay, so I know we're at 5 minutes before we're supposed to end, but again, we're committed to staying so we can get through some more questions. I want to start with the cleanliness, and then we'll get to transportation. And I appreciate you, Director Rowland, for talking about your presence in East Oakland. There's just overall a sense that, especially the deep, gets neglected by the city. And it has been for years. Many people acknowledge that this has been going on for years. It's not about this year, it's about decades. And so everyone wants to know what this city is doing to prioritize East Oakland. Specifically, let's talk about the cleaning of illegal dumping, et cetera. And anything you can speak to specifically for this region of the city around how you're addressing illegal dumping.
Yes, thank you. And so one of the things that happens a lot in this area is some confusion regarding illegal dumping and homeless encampments. Because we will go out and we will collect illegal dumping. I said before, 20,000 tons last year. There's still more out there, but there's also these encampments. And let me tell you one of the challenges that we have, as I said earlier, but when we get ready to do an encampment, we actually post online, we're gonna be in these locations for this period of time. So we go out to an encampment and then we get something called a TRO. Do you know what that is? It is a temporary restraining order, where someone says they go to court and the court grants that. And then we're in court trying to simply clean up the area. And so what happens with us, what we do is to close an encampment, we post the notice 7 to 10 days in advance. Not to mention we go out to the area and we provide Operation Dignity counseling to say, we'd like to get you services to get you off the street. That's one of the requirements that we have to do. So we post the notice, the advocates go, and then they say, okay, court says, okay, stop. So we have to wait. So we have guys waiting around, so we'll try to move to do illegal dumping, but a lot of the times when we are trying to clean up the city streets, we are halted by a federal judge that says, these individuals have rights, we have to provide them X, Y, and Z. Now, we're getting better at that with the grants just recently passing. So we will be more aggressive in doing that, and we are focusing in, as I said before, school access, senior centers, parks, ADA access. We are going to be very aggressive, and that means this. We're going to offer you a place to go in terms of housing. But if you don't go, you gotta leave that particular spot. That is the method that we're doing, because we have to have citizens have access. And we have to be able to return the public spaces back to our citizens. As I said before, 20,000 tons last year. We're trying to find more and more ways to pick up illegal dumping off of our city streets.
And related, thank you so much, Director Duffy. How can people report that? I know a lot of people in here know how to report illegal dumping, but for those that don't, because we did get a few questions, how do you report that?
Sure. So are you guys familiar with Oak 3 and 1? Okay, or See Click Fix? All you have to do is snap a picture of it and turn it in. But Oak 3 and 1 really is the place for you to turn it in, because then there's a record of that. And then it's assigned a number and we track that. And here's a stat that I normally don't say because it's a tough one to swallow. Illegal dumping that's reported in 0311, 90% of the time is picked up in 3 days. Now I know people say that's impossible, it's not happening. And here's the deal. If it is associated with an encampment, the moment that encampment says, that's my property, we can't pick it up. That's craziness. And so we're going to be trying to talk to people, get more of that material there. But we have the stats that show we did over 30,000 service requests that you guys called in, and we picked up the material. And every single call in is investigated by our public works employees. Now, I know you guys, I agree with you. That's why I very rarely use that number. The city is not as clean as it should be. And we're trying to find ways to do that. But the men and women, your neighbors, born and raised in Oakland, are out there every single day. And they're picking up 20,000 tons last year. And listen, met with the grand jury last year. And I said, before we start this conversation, let me say this. The men and women of Oakland that are in the Public Works Department picking up this trash, I have the stats and I have the tonnage slips that show they picked up 20,000 tons of material. So now we can have a conversation, but you can't say that these men and women are not working very hard day in and day out.
Thank you, Director Duffy. I'm going to ask everyone when you answer to try to keep like a 30-second answer so I can get through these, okay? This is back to you, Duffy. So once an area is clean, and I think you talked about it with Adopt a Spot, but just to repeat, once the area is clean, what's the plan to keep it clean?
And so the plan to keep it clean really is moving back to enforcement. If you have people that are violating the laws and the rules, we need to enforce that, because here's what we don't want. Right now, people are putting out barriers in the street, but nobody wants to live in a neighborhood where there's barriers and blocks in the street. And besides, that's significant liability for the city. If somebody runs along and hits one of those barriers that we allow in the street, there's significant liability. And here's the thing, you are the city. So whenever we're liable for something, it's your tax dollars. So the goal here is to make sure that one, you report it, and two, we respond to it immediately. Please use Oak 311 and C-Click Fix to report those items. But at the moment somebody comes back, it's one tent, one nice guy. No, don't let one tent, one camper come to your neighborhood, because one becomes three becomes eight, and then you got a whole fiasco going on.
Thank you, Director Duffy. We have questions specifically about the prioritization of schools so our children can get to and from school safely. Can someone speak to how school zones are being prioritized to address illegal dumping?
Absolutely. So I wanted to answer the first question in regards to East Oakland and how do we prioritize East Oakland in all of our priorities. And so what I can say is that no one needs to show me an audit or a report on where the areas are most divested out of, right, for decades. And that's easy. It's Deep East Oakland, West Oakland. And so with that being said, we are working with multiple different nonprofits in East Oakland to invest $100 million directly into the 40 by 40 block of just East Oakland. Every single dollar will go into East Oakland. Because we know that it is through giving these funds to the community that the community knows what to do with the funds so that we can be uplifted, everyone in the city of Oakland. So that's number one. Number two, in regards to the enforcement, that was the missing piece for so many years. Like, we had people picking up the trash, but then what we got the illegal dumpers used to was that people was picking up their trash with no enforcement, no penalties, no costs. And so what you're gonna start seeing is there's gonna be sting operation. We're gonna be ramping up that enforcement. We're gonna have tow trucks on queue so they can just clip and tow. And once we do a few of those, I think we're gonna teach somebody a lesson. And so that's gonna also curb the illegal dumping. In regards to how we do everything in the city, whether it's Oakland Fresh, whether it's paving the streets, whether it's making sure a motorcycle detail is out there, is that we are hyper-focused on the priority of, will this allow for our kids, our babies of Oakland, to get to school safely? Are our babies, our kids of Oakland, are they able to utilize public infrastructure that they should be able to utilize? That's parks and rec center. That's our sidewalks, walking to school safely. Being safe isn't just about making sure you don't get robbed or what have you. It's also about how do you feel about your neighborhood, the pride you take in it. And right now, the city has allowed for us to get to a point in only specific areas, which is East Oakland, West Oakland, Central Oakland, to be so dirty that no one will allow their kids to walk the streets. So I press upon this whole team to remind them, when they come to me and they say, these are the priorities we want to set in place, can we have a green light to go? My question follow-up is, how many schools, right? Where are the radius? Why are you starting there? Give me the rationale. Are we honing in on our values of ensuring that our kids can get to school safely? Because I know that if we can hone in on that value, that we're going to get the bang for our buck, and not just that, but protect one of our most vulnerable population.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we're going to do one more question about either encampments and dumping, and then we'll get into transportation questions. So I know our culture in Oakland it also includes having compassion for folks. And so there's a few people who have questions about the lack of affordable housing and want to know, when we are addressing these encampments, how are folks being connected to services? Where are they supposed to go? And if you want to speak about the plans to address the lack of affordable housing.
Yeah, so, we know that many of the market rate housing has been built up, especially in downtown Oakland. Even with the 10K plan from previous administration, that is all market rate. And so my values coming from working families and being a renter myself, I always ask the crowd, how many of y'all are property owners? How many of you who are property owners are tired of being taxed over and over for new stuff? Absolutely. How many of you are renters? I'm a renter. And I can tell you that because we're renters, we are actually barred from entering to be first-time homeowners because of the high taxes in Oakland, just the add-on taxes. And so this is why we have to do the economic development of bringing more dollars and new revenue streams into Oakland so we can stop taxing our property owners. That is a goal of ours. But with that being said, in regards to ensuring that if we have the affordable housing, because everyone talks about coming to Oakland because they love our culture. Well, our culture is our people. So how do we build so that we can give our own people some housing? That is why our administration is investing a historic amount. Oakland has never invested this much into affordable and deeply affordable housing, $200 million. That is already a line item. And I want to thank the voters for helping us get there through Measure U. So that is already being invested. We're doing groundbreakings on church properties, groundbreakings throughout Oakland in regards to that infrastructure. We're not going to realize its potential until years from now, but we are already starting that work. We also know that in regards to our homeless neighbors, that in San Francisco, they're just doing full sweeps. We believe in dignity. We are still going out to offer shelter. We're going to give you shelter. We're going to offer you the resources. We contract with Operation Dignity. They will come out and help you get the resources that you need. But I want to be very clear. In order for us to house people in a real way, we need for the federal government and the state government to step up to give us some funding streams for permanent supportive housing. Many people who live on our streets, they will never be able to actually live alone, learn how to pay rent, or what have you. They need permanent supportive housing for life. And so that's going to be the nexus that we're pushing upon the federal government and state government. But in Oakland, we are still going out, offering shelter, offering resources. However, if you don't take our resources, if you don't take our shelter, we're going to ask you to move along. You have to get off of the sidewalks. You have to. You have to get out of the parks. You got to go. And so with that being said, we are in discussion around people who are violating this over and over, with the understanding that we do not have a public health department, nor do we offer social services in that sense. That's all done at the county level. So we are really pressing upon our county partners to step up to actually implement the interim housing, permanent supportive housing. And I want to talk a little bit about, if you read in the papers that our homelessness count has gone up while all the other cities have gone down, I'll tell you why. Because here in the city of Oakland, we are the largest city in the county. The county sets up all these social services programs or what have you. Many of them are in the city of Oakland. So when they have someone filing paperwork to actually be housed in interim shelter, they'll file a document with the county, and the county finds a program in Oakland for them. Now they become our number. They become our unhoused. And it is very frustrating, and I've demanded for the county to review this, and not just that, but the grand jury to review the equity part. not equality, the equity. We are the largest city, so if you fund the city of Oakland by population relative to Fremont, Dublin, or what have you, and then you give each city their cut, variable to their population size, that's not equitable. If we are hosting all of the social programs, we should be getting all of that money so that we are not spending our general fund dollars where we used to clean the streets, pay for officers in this area, in this field. And so that is the work that I am doing in regards to pushing upon the county to do better. Give us our equitable share of the dollars if you're going to continue to give us your unhoused, right? But what we really want is we need to put pressure on other cities in our county to stand up their own program. Stand up your own safe parking. Stand up your own homelessness shelter. We are tired of taking care of everybody. We can't. We have to focus on Oakland, right? And so that is the kind of tone that I am taking with the other cities, and this is why. If we gotta make those other cities uncomfortable, then we're gonna do that.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so a couple of questions for you, Director Rowe, in the Department of Transportation. One is, you've talked about the massive amount of work that's being done to repave the streets, and some of that includes installing new speed bumps. So there's a question around what's the difference between the small ones and the larger ones? Folks are a little bit confused. I know I live off a high street, and I know there was a lot of pavement there. When I first saw those speed bumps, I didn't know whether to go over it. Am I supposed to be on the side of it? Can you speak to the speed bumps? Thank you.
Sure, happy to. So it's you actually have a speed cushion and a speed bump. The difference is where you see the smaller ones, it's actually designed so that the wheels of a fire truck can go through those grooves. What happens a lot of times is as we're trying to slow traffic down, we either narrow the street or we put the bumps in. But what we don't want to do is slow down response times for the fire truck. So the idea of the speed cushion is that a passenger car will hit at least one side, but a fire truck can straddle it. So when you see the smaller ones, that's actually what's going on there. Is it's the truck can straddle the smaller hump, but it'll still hit one side or the other of the passenger vehicle.
Does that mean we're supposed to roll over the large part and not try to get in between?
Just whatever line you're driving, stay on it.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's a specific question about the bus lane in East 14th, right? And what's being done about that. I know that's been in the news a lot. There's been a lot of opinions and a lot of traffic violence that's resulted. So what's the plan? Folks mentioned that they're seeing some of the mitigations being put up, but if you can speak to what's being done to address the bus lane and some of the injuries we've seen as a result.
Yeah, so you're seeing the immediate work that's going on with the colored posts to delineate between the vehicle lane and the bus lane. Starting probably early October, we're going to be adding some speed cushions as a pilot to deter cars from getting into the bus lanes. What I would offer, and this is personal opinion, as we work more with AC Transit, those are initial efforts to curb some of the poor driver behavior on the corridor. There are going to be additional efforts to address some intersection issues. There just operationally, there are several intersections that still aren't functioning correctly that we're going to have to address. And as you know, from 42nd out here is a Caltrans street, so we're working with Caltrans to discuss continued safety improvements while we're looking at the city section. So, but initially, you've seen the posts. We'll be doing the speed cushions within the lanes, but there will be more to come. This is not a one and done type thing within those bus lanes.
So you have like a near-term plan and a mid-term and a long-term?
Correct.
Okay. Questions about cars parked on the sidewalk. How is that being addressed? That goes for RVs as well. And is it the same way to report that as you report other things? How do folks report that, and how is parking on the sidewalk being addressed?
So yeah, so when you look at the parking enforcement, we have about 50 parking control technicians. Last year, we issued, roughly speaking, 260,000 citations. Month of July, we issued 30,000. So we're increasing. The parking behavior in Oakland is poor. And so what we're looking at doing, and Mayor Tao mentioned it, is let's stop with the citation, jump straight to towing. And so that's what we're working towards, is how can we start sending a stronger message? And it's things like parking in the travel lane, parking in the red curb, parking in the on the sidewalk. Those are the top three in my mind that we really need to be addressing.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to try to wrap up soon here. There's some questions that are more about like the budget and our economic state. So questions about the Coliseum sale, several of them. 2 parts. One, what's the status? All right, maybe that'll answer the second part. Second part is, what's the contingency plan if the sale doesn't go through?
Yes, and so the Coliseum sale is in play right now. Actually, you should be hearing an update pretty soon, by early next week. And so, but that's all I can say about that. It's going really well. If that doesn't happen, which we don't believe is going to be the case, then there's a contingency plan that's already in play right now, right? With the different freezes within the within the city, that has already taken place. You know, there are other contingencies that would happen. That means that OPD, once they start seeing people attrition off, meaning retiring or leaving for other agencies, that they're going to have to freeze not bringing more officers on board, because that number, the reason why, well, one of the reasons why we moved forward with selling the Coliseum is really so that we could keep our numbers of OPD and our fire stations up and running. That's the key part. You're looking at closure or a browning out is what they say, because it'll be a closure, they'll take turn closing the fire departments 4 at a time. That's part of the contingency plan that we do not expect to happen. Part of the contingency plan with OPD is instead of having 678 officers, it'll go down all the way to 610. Again, we do not plan to have this happen. I will say that in November, there will be Measure NN. Measure NN is just an update to the Measure Z dollars. And so those Measure Z dollars, they already fund 35 police positions, and they have to fund that. They also fund the Department of Violence Prevention and the fire department. And so that's up for renewal on your ballot in November. And if that ballot measure passes, then our minimal staffing for officers must be 700 officers. So that's the goal that we're trying to get to, is to get past that measure so that we could get to 700 officers as a minimal threshold.
Thank you, Mayor. So this next question is related to the focus on Deep East Oakland. Obviously, the sale of the Coliseum and the investments there is an investment and a focus on Deep East Oakland. The questions, several about the Hagenberger corridor. What's being done to support the businesses there is the first question.
Yes, so it blows my mind that the Hagenberger corridor, which at one point in time hosted a professional football team, a professional basketball team, a professional baseball team, that it did not get developed. The reason why I think it's completely was mismanaged is the fact that we know that when people go out to watch sports, that afterwards and before, they pregame, and then after the game, they'll go out and have drinks or eat or what have you. We're at the Coliseum. That's all you do, is you go to the game, and if you eat with the vendors, you do, and then you get in your car and then you leave, right? And so with that, we missed a huge opportunity to actually absorb those revenues. So the Hagenberger corridor is my priority corridor, meaning the investments in regards to beautification, we must invest in it so that we can get businesses to come back in that corridor. Not just that, but when you have visitors coming over to your house, I mean, you vacuum, you wash your dishes, you make sure things are set nicely. That has to be the case for Oakland. All major corridors must be beautified, especially Hagenberger when it is the airport. It is the entrance and the exit to the airport. As we are expanding the airport, we need to be more cognizant on this. And so this is a task that I've tasked the city administration to already go out and review to see what we can do right now, some of the lower hanging fruits, so that we can attract. But understanding that the sale of the Coliseum will actually really put this on a fast track plan to ensure that that whole corridor is being developed. And so stay tuned for some of the plans, but we are working day and night on this whole Hagenberger corridor.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we're going to do 2 more questions. Once again, I tried to cluster, and I got to the questions where there were a number of people who had the same question. If you had a very specific question that other folks didn't have, we will get back to you via email. But we're going to do 2 more, and then we'll close out and do some calls to action. The first one is about Does Oakland offer any training programs or apprenticeship programs to teach people a trade, carpentry, masonry, etc., to deter them from committing crimes in the first place? So I know we have a workforce development board. I know the Department of Violence Prevention has some employment training resources, but whoever wants to answer that, I can answer that, but go ahead, unless someone wants me to do it.
So the city received a grant 2 years ago to allow us to do the Public Works Youth and Young Adult Academy. And it specifically targets certain zip codes within Oakland. And we hire 10 individuals from ages 18 to 26. And we teach them job skills, and the goal is for them to have that internship. It's a paid internship. I think it's like $23 an hour. And then from that point, they can apply for permanent public works jobs. We teach them safety skills. We teach them job interview skills. We tell them when the interview is going to happen. We get it all lined up, and we've had so far, out of our 2 academies, we've had at least 7 people actually become City of Oakland Public Works employees.
Thank you. And it's just in addition to that, the city functions as a funder mostly. So the Workforce Development Board issues a lot of funding to CBO organizations who do job trainings, specifically for our reentry population. Those are folks coming home. And then also currently the Department of Violence Prevention does the same. So mostly funding, but we're building out, as Director Duffy said, some in-house training programs to help get Oaklanders into these good government jobs. Last question, and I had to save the best for last. We are in a church. How can churches get involved with violence prevention in their communities? What's the role of the faith-based community for those folks who want to roll up their sleeves and be a part of the solution? And anyone can answer that? I can answer that. You want me to start? Okay, well, I'll start. So with Ceasefire, Ceasefire Partnership is a partnership between the Police Department, the Department of Violence Prevention, the Alameda County Probation Department, and also community organizations and community groups. Most of those community groups are faith-based groups. Faith in Action East Bay, are there any members of Faith in Action East Bay here? Okay, shout out to Faith in Action East Bay. They were the group that helped push and other members to create Ceasefire. They pushed the city to do it. So they do Ceasefire walks on a regular basis. You might have heard of those. That is where, maybe 30 to 40 to 50 folks go out and do safety walks, especially in the hot areas where we experience the most violence in our city, specifically shootings. So that's one way. And then I will say that through this new iteration or the revitalization of Ceasefire, we are looking at how to expand our partnerships in that area. We also have a few, they're trained, who participate, faith-based leaders who participate in what we call direct communications. So we identify someone who's just been shot, or someone whose friend just got shot, or maybe is someone who has shot someone. We're trying to engage them. Oftentimes it's a partnership with a faith-based leader of some sort, a police officer, and as well as sometimes someone from the Department of Violence Prevention. So there's a huge need for partnership, specifically around addressing the violence. We really appreciate that question. As we close out, I first just want to thank you all once again, for taking time this evening. I'd also like to thank all of our public safety leaders. It takes a lot to calendar these things and get everybody here, and they work very, very hard, as we all do. A couple of reminders of calls to action. Adopt a spot. If you want your neighborhood, your block, your street, the city will come and do that cleanup if you adopt your spot, which means you're committing to keeping it clean. So there in the back, that's one. AC alerts, sign up for AC alerts. Please Google that. That is a way for the county and other folks to alert you, especially for emergencies. And then once again, just want to make sure we have all your email addresses so we can get back to you with the questions that were answered and some of the ones that weren't answered. So thank you all so much for doing this again downtown or in Chinatown tomorrow night, so you can spread the word or join us there again. Have a wonderful, safe evening. Thank you. And another thank you to Pastor Jackie and Alan Temple for hosting us.